This is probably the best Bumblebee figure they've released in a long time. Stay tuned and I'll tell you why. First impressions right out of the box. One thing you're going to notice, this guy is small. He's very, very small, especially when compared to other deluxe figures from the current wave and from previous figure lines. So comparing this guy to his original, here's the original, and this guy just dwarfs the new figure. I did add some black lines on this one or whatever, but this one, as you can see, is much, much bigger. But that's actually a problem I had with this one. This one I felt was always just too big. This guy scales a lot better with a lot more of my other figures. So this guy I always thought was way too big. And this guy's color matching, I don't think is as good as this one. Granted, this one has more paint to paint over, but this one looks more cohesive in terms of the yellow paint matching. Also, I think I just prefer, on camera they look very similar, but this one is kind of a darker yellow. This one's like a light, lemon yellow. Bringing in another animated Bumblebee figure, we have, here's the Legends class figure from, what, 2010, I think? I think that's when this one came out. But this one even dwarfs that one. So we have like the 3 different size scales of Bumblebee. And in terms of scaling, this one is actually the best. Because this one is actually the accurate scale, at least in terms of vehicle mode, is the most accurate in terms of scaling when compared to other figures and other animated figures. Here's the deluxe class Optimus Prime, and definitely this Bumblebee is far too big. This is far too big compared to Optimus Prime. It doesn't look bad, though. They don't look too bad. This guy is a bit more segmented. It does have a few more panel lines. It does have, like, the little ports on the side. But I'm not going to go as far to say as they look bad with each other. Bringing in another Prime that actually works pretty good is Earthrise Netflix. And this, again, the scaling is quite off. I'm imagining a human is probably, like, up to here, probably a little bit taller, whereas a human's going to be way smaller going into here. So the scaling is way off, but again, they don't look bad. This guy actually looks way better with this one, just because this one's a lot more detailed. There's a lot more panel lines on here, just like this one. But these two, I would definitely see as play compatible. And here we go. We have the animated Voyager class Bulkhead, and yeah, I think Bulkhead, I always thought this Bulkhead was a little too small, just in general. But compared to these two, that doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look terrible. I do think the scaling is a little bit off. I think the leader class version of this one would look a little bit better. I always preferred this one, though, because it has the wrecking balls, and it doesn't have all the extra greebly bits that he didn't have in the show. This is far more show accurate. Turning to this guy's accessories, he doesn't have a whole lot. But you know what? That's totally fine. He didn't really use a whole lot in the show. We have the little stinger bits. These will make more sense in robot mode. And he's got the little rocket boosters, which are just translucent clear plastic, but they feel pretty sturdy. I don't feel like I'm gonna break these guys anytime soon. Like here, you just pop them on the sides here. Come on. And that doesn't look too bad. It kind of matches with the windows. It does make it look a little weird, but you could paint these pretty darn easily to make them more show accurate. One thing you can do is you can actually take the stinger pieces, plug them into the back, and it kind of looks like a blast effect, but I don't think... Okay, it kind of does look like a blast effect, but I think the silver kind of ruins it up. If it was just translucent blue, it would have worked a lot better. But it doesn't look bad. Alright, so let's get this guy into robot mode, and I can show you why this guy is absolutely awesome. So here, go back here, pop this bit out, you just disconnect that from this bumper, and just take it, swing this up, it's going to snap off. In there, it doesn't really peg in, there's a peg there, but it doesn't really peg in super tight, it just kind of rests right there. Fold this bit down. Swing the arms down. They don't really peg in, which is kind of dumb. It does make it a bit easier to mess with it. So you just take it, swing them down, and then disconnect these two pegs up here at the front. Then take the the crotch piece, actually here, real quick, fold these out on that clear plastic joint. Hopefully that holds up. And then fold these down. Then take the waist part, fold that down, snap that. Rotate that around, go down here, separate the legs. There's a few pegs there. Open up the hood portion. Fold out the little black parts. Turn it back around, and then grab this and rotate it up. Yep, and then take the feet, fold these down, fold these in the front, push those back. Actually, just make sure those are good. Then there's these two little heel spurs. These little black heel spurs that don't really like to come out. Come on, there you go. There's one, and there's two. So we got that. Come back up here and take the chest part, fold that down, and that is basically straight out of the show. That's how he transformed in the show. This part folds down and the head just folds up. That is super smooth. That is great. Then there's a peg right there. Line that up, peg that in. It's not super tight, and don't force it because it's clear plastic. Then fold his hands out, fold the doors down, rotate his arm. Make sure the shoulders are all the way upwards. There we go. Then hand out, fold that, rotate his arm. That doesn't, none of these pegs pegging super tight, but it's serviceable. So now we have Bumblebee in robot mode. Now here's where I get to gush about the figure a little bit, because first of all, that head sculpt is really well done. Hopefully that focuses. That was really well done. First of all, I did put a little sticker on there just to give it the white background. That looks a lot better on the Autobot emblem. That head looks really, really good. People were saying it's too animated for Legacy and too Legacy for animated, but I don't know. Look, if you cover up this bit, cover up the bottom, that's pretty much G1 Bumblebee with just an extended chin. So I'm not sure how else they could have done that. To me, that looks perfectly fine. That's straight out of the show, and that looks great. It's got shoulder joints up here, and then there's an extra joint down here because of the transformation. So if you fold it down, fold this back up, you can put the arms out. So there's that, and then there's also another arm joint proper. I think this is supposed to be the proper arm joint right here, and then this is just a transformation joint, but it works really nicely. There's no butterfly joint, and don't try that because again, this whole section is kind of clear plastic, which is a little nerve-wracking, but it seems pretty solid. There we go. Elbows are normal 90, which is kind of dumb. He does have wrists though, which is really nice to see on just a mainline deluxe figure. Wrists are very, very nice. Got waist swivel, also do the transformation, but always appreciated. Knees go way further than 90, which is excellent. And then what you can do with these black kneecaps is you can just fold it down and cover that up, and it folds up really nicely. It does push this out, but it's not a huge deal. Just push that back down. And then coming down to the feet, he does have a little bit of up and down, and he does have an ankle pivot. There is a little bit of clearance issue right here, so you just pop that out. It's not super bad. I don't think I'm going to damage it in any way, but he does have a really nice ankle pivot. Okay, now here we have the original. Here's the original figure released in like I think it was 2008, I'm pretty sure. 2008, this one was released. Again, I did put a sticker on this one. And this guy, again, just dwarfs this original. This is what deluxe class size used to be back in the day. This guy's just absolutely huge, but I'm thinking I still like this guy, the little guy, a little bit better. He scales a lot better, first of all, and then his posability is way, way better. Because this guy, he does have up and down, just the one joint, which is very nice. It does on a ball joint, so it's a bit more free. And he does have slight, very slight butterfly joints, so he can get some decent. He's got a little bit, no, elbows are about the same. Elbows are about the same. Head is about the same, because he can look up, and then this guy can look up all the way. And I can't look very down real well. This guy looks down a bit more, but it's not a huge deal. Stingers are built into the arms. This guy doesn't have that. That's okay. This guy's feet, even though, yes, here, if you turn to the back, the front of the car is his heels, not the front of his feet, like on this guy. But if you look at the animation model, you can see his feet, they actually change shape. They're not just straight up the front of the car, ripped off and slapped on for feet. They actually do change shape. So this shape of the feet is actually a lot more accurate, in my opinion. Bring this guy back in. He does have like outward hips, front and back, good knees, but it kind of gets in the way because these back pieces really get in the way. And then these tires really, they can sometimes get in the way because of this back piece here. If this back piece wasn't here, it would actually not be too bad. Hand or wrists don't rotate at all, but they do fold away for the stinger, so that's kind of neat. So it's a trade-off between these guys, because this does look, oh, my bad. This guy does look a lot more animation accurate. That's true. This one is a lot more animation accurate in general. I still think I like the little guy a little bit better, just for all the quality of life changes. First of all, he stands up a lot better. Look, I can pick him up and drop him. And he's still standing. I pick up this guy and drop him from the same height, and he's falling over. This guy's far less stable than this one when posing him. He can get some good poses out of him. I can't, but he can't do the T-pose arms because of that ball joint, and I'm not going to mess with that ball joint. That's another thing in this guy. Okay, you can get that. But this guy's ball joints are notoriously fragile. I don't know how well this one's going to hold up in the future, but I know this guy, almost knocked over light. This guy in the future is not going to hold up near as well as this one is. Comparing the two in their car modes, and it's a tough toss. I guess it depends on, here, if you move that. It depends on what you're looking for. This guy over here, the original, definitely looks like a more realistic car. This is how this car would kind of look in real life. They're kind of very smooth. But I will say the cartoon proportions, in my opinion, are more accurate on this one. On the new one, the proportions are a lot more accurate. He's more, like, the shapes are more distinct. He's a lot, like, more chunky. He's a lot more squat. This one's a lot more realistic. But he is a lot, I will say this guy is a lot more cohesive. He's way smoother and comes together a little bit better than this guy. This guy's kind of segmented. But I can get past that because that's kind of what the figures have been for a little while. They've just been overly detailed. So I've kind of gotten used to it. So that doesn't bother me. What does bother me is the tabs don't really like to plug in very well. They don't plug in at all. Like, there's no plug for that tab to go into. So it does hold together really well. Though I don't feel like if I drop this thing, it's going to come disconnected. Whereas if I drop this thing, it would shatter into a million pieces. So it's kind of a toss-up. Which one do you want? A little bit more accurate cartoony proportions, but a little bit more segmented, a little bit more detailed? Or do you want the more realistic car mode that's a bit more smooth and more cohesive? It all depends. It's all your personal preference at this point. Okay, now we're gonna go into a bit of a rant, bit of a story time, little section here. So this guy is, no exaggeration, probably my favorite figure in my collection. Just because it's got all the modern posing and everything that the original one does not. And it's first of all, it's just because it's animated Bumblebee, which I have to say is probably one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Because I was growing up, I was not very tall. I'm gonna say this right now. I'm still not very tall. I never got past 4'11" tall. 4 feet 11 inches tall. That's my height. Not a midget. Don't claim to be a midget is 4'10", and I don't claim to be part of the little person community. That's not who I am. I'm saying is I always grew up. I was always the shortest one in my class, just like this guy here. But they always found a way to use him for missions, to use his strengths. He surrounded himself with people who supported him, just on his own. They used that as an advantage, and yeah, well, they teased him like any family does, right? But he never let that get him down very much. Yeah, he got a little angry, but we all get a little angry when we get teased, but he never let it destroy him. He never let it define him, if that makes sense. He found his family. He found a group that used it as an advantage and didn't just belittle him like the elite guard would have, like in the Auto Boot Camp episode. So that's why this guy really resonated with me, and why Bumblebee, just in general, not just animated Bumblebee, just Bumblebee in general, I just grew to love the character. Granted, I don't think they're going in the right direction with Bumblebee, because I was never really a huge fan. Well, okay, I can't say that. But lately I've grown to resent the there we go, the sports car kind of jock version of the character that we've been getting lately in ever since Transformers Prime, I want to say, was the last, well, no, the movie did it first, and then the movie took off, the 2007 live-action movie took off, and now Bumblebee is no longer the little guy, but he's just a big jock now. He's well, yeah, he's the Bumblebee movie did a little bit better. They brought him back to the small round car. I don't care if he's a Volkswagen. I just want him a small round car. Does not have to be a Volkswagen. But I don't think the jock hot rod kind of archetype fits Bumblebee as a character, in my opinion. That's not how I saw Bumblebee. I always saw him as the little guy that didn't let them get him down. He was just he was never meant to be the leader. He was never going to be the leader. That was always Hot Rod's deal. That was Optimus, Hot Rod, Sentinel, whoever. That was never really Bumblebee's deal, but now he's the most popular, and now he has to be the leader. He always has to be a sports car jock, which I'm that's not the character I fell in love with. I fell in love with the little guy that didn't let that get him down. But yeah, in my opinion, this is the best version of the character. I haven't watched a whole lot of G1, so I don't know how that character is, but I feel like this guy is the character I fell in love with. Just he, for lack of a better term, he made me realize that my height was not going to matter as long as I surrounded myself with the right people. The friends that I chose, the friends that I was very much blessed with, my wife that I was blessed with, my height does not mean anything to them. Sure, they make jokes that every family does, but like I said before, but I'm not going to let it define me just because I let a few hateful comments. Sorry, I'm trying to. There you go. I'm not just going to let a few hateful comments get in my way. if that makes sense, because the people who mean the most to me, it doesn't matter to them. And that's what I'm going to choose to focus on, just like this guy. So that's why I feel like just in my opinion, nobody has to agree with this. This is just my opinion. But that's why, in my opinion, this is the greatest version of the character, because it's for personal, at the end of the day, it's a personal reason. And not a lot of, I don't know how many other people are going to relate to this, but because it's a pretty rare thing. It's not super common to be as short as I am. That's not very common. But in my opinion, that's why I just love this character, and this will be the definitive Bumblebee on my shelf. For another reason, I feel that this guy is the definitive Bumblebee is kind of how generic he is. Like, aside from the head, it's not, like, aside from the head and, like, the shape of the car, it's very animated, but you're not going to confuse this for any other character. You're not going to confuse this for Optimus. You're not going to confuse it for Hot Rod, Hot Shot. You're not going to confuse this for any other character. Anybody's going to look at this and say that's Bumblebee. So I feel like this is going to work excellently just for a generic Bumblebee. Because the last time we got just a generic Bumblebee, he was an exclusive. This is the first non-exclusive Bumblebee we have gotten in a long time. So in my book, that is a great thing. And Hasbro, please more, also just please more animated figures, just in general. But Hasbro, please, your distribution, please let it be good on this, because I want more people to be able to get this figure, because this is just my favorite figure in my collection and the greatest Bumblebee I think they've released in a long time. So yeah, needless to say, this little guy kicks a lot of butt. Let me set this guy over here. But yeah, no, he poses a lot better. He doesn't have any ball joints that I feel like are going to break. He looks like animated Bumblebee, but he could look like just a generic Bumblebee figure, which I think is great. I think he's going to look great among the current generation of figures, and some of the original figures won't look actually too bad. But then again, that is all my opinion, and nobody has to agree with it. So I love this guy. I 100% recommend picking one up. So I will see you guys in the next video.